going to be focusing on implementing the change in the period of availability of the election security grant funds. So last Friday, we sent out a message regarding this decision. And so we're going to talk a little bit through it from the agency perspective. And we're going to open up the lines and the chat for questions and just to hear from you if you have any concerns or recommendations as we move forward with our options. So just a little housekeeping, because we're going to try to run through the slides first, please keep your lines on mute, and then we'll alert you when it's time to unmute and start the discussion. Today we're going to be, my name is Kinza Ghaznavi, and I'm the Grants Manager at the Election Assistance Commission, and I'm joined by Peg Rosenberry, our subject matter expert for grants. We'll be fielding questions at the end, so let's begin. So as we shared with you last Friday, we've made a decision regarding the availability of funds period for our 2018 election security grants and our 2020 election security grants. So in February, we had talked to GAO about a decision regarding the previously thought term limited grants, of which we determined it would be a 5-year limit. And GAO shared with us that they are actually experiencing a very large backlog and understaffed. So the decision from them would take 3 more months. And as a result, we thought that it's time to move forward with a decision as we discussed, moving forward with OMB having already shared with us that they thought that the availability of funds determination of having no term limit was correct, and GAO indicating and leaning in that direction as well. So the decision at this point is that they will be available until expended. What does this mean? That means that states will have an unlimited amount of time to spend these funds in the same period of time in which to meet the required match. Of course, that still means that you should be making a reasonable progress in your federal fund spending within, a reasonable number of years. So what does this change? At a minimum, the grants need to be amended to change the project periods. We've done this before with the 251 requirement payments, the NGA for that, the project period end date was revised. And so we would revise the project period end period here as well to indicate the funds are available until expended. The first budget period will be amended to end on September 30th, 2022. This will allow for a closeout of expended funds and a carryover of unexpended funds to a new amendment. We've done this before about 2 years or so ago, and the benefit of that is that grantees without this closeout process have to maintain grant records for an extremely long periods of time, decades. And so once we do a closeout, then you can start the clock on those record maintenance requirements for that portion of the grant. And that's how we will make sure that that burden is reduced by doing a 3-year cycle of these closeouts. Now, one option is to take these 2 election security grants, the 2018 and the 2020, and combine the grants into one election security grant. The appropriation acts that provided the funds are for the same purpose and the same activities. If the project period has been unlimited in both grants from the beginning, we would have issued an amendment to the first grant, adding that second allocation, which is normal grant practice. The advantages of combining the grants is that separating the funds into 2 grants creates an artificial distinction between similar and in many cases the same activities. States are expanding some of these activities that they had planned for the 2018 using the 2020 funds. This awarding the funds in one grant eliminates the need for states to establish procedures to allocate activities and funds separately and accurately. States can then also submit their FFRs, which is the Federal Financial Report, and their progress narratives on one instead of two grants. One grant eliminates the potential for an audit finding if allocation of funds between the two grants is not well documented and clear. States would also not have to track interest earned and expended separately. There's also disadvantages. There are that EAC would require the states to resubmit the budget worksheet combining the funds. States may already have established separate accounting codes for the 2020 funds that are no longer needed. You may also have to ensure that 2020 funds are not spent prior to December 21st, 2019. If we keep the grants separated as they are today, then there's advantages to that as well. You won't have to resubmit the budget worksheet combining funds, and the only change required to the notice of grant award is an amendment to the project and budget periods. The disadvantage of keeping them separate, however, would be that you'd have to submit twice as many FFRs and progress reports. You'd also have to establish strong allocation policies and procedures to ensure that expenditures are allocated between the two grants in the appropriate proportions, including staff time. Interest will have to be allocated between the grants accurately as well. Talking about match. So the states report and EAC tracks match based on a dollar amount, not percentages. And the notice of grant award specifies that amount. So if we do combine the grants, we would just add the two match dollar amounts together to get to the state match. As this example on the screen shows. We received some questions in advance, so I'm going to go through those and then we'll get to open the lines. So the first question we got was, how will EAC establish the budget period under a joint grant? The amended NGA will have a project period that begins on March 23rd, 2018, and a budget period that begins on December 21st, 2019. This will allow the 2018 funds, which will be noted as previously awarded on the NGA, to be expended going forward from the 2018, and the current award amount with the 2020 funds to be expended starting on December 21st, 2019. States will spend the 2018 funds first. Next question is, how long do states have to meet the match? So states must still identify how they will meet the match by December 20th, 2021 for the 2020 funds, but now basically have an unlimited amount of time to meet it. You need to meet it by the time you have expended all the funds under the grant. This applies to both the required match under the 2018 and under the 2020 appropriation. Next question is, if we have already provided more than the 5% match required for the 2018 funds, can we use the excess to meet the higher match on the 2020 funds? The answer is yes. EAC tracks your match on the FFR, and it is cumulative for the project period. You must meet the required state share by the time you expend all the federal funds, but the rate at which you expend it is not fixed in specific periods. We will ask for justification or clarification if we see expenditures with state funds severely lagging behind use of the federal funds. That's all our slides. Now we want to hear from you. What are your thoughts, your questions, and your concerns about the two proposals before you, especially the one that EAC prefers, which is combining the grants? You can either enter your question on chat, or you can unmute your line and ask your question.
So, Kinza, I'm not seeing any questions coming up on the chat.
Hi, good afternoon. This is Aidelis from the State Election Commission of Puerto Rico. My question will be, if I merge the two funds, the 2018 and 2020 grants of our election security, can I resubmit the budget worksheet with the submitted proposal for 2018 grant, the narrative? Like, if I can justify supporting that new grant with the activity that we already submitted before with 2018 grant.
So let me rephrase and see if I'm capturing exactly what you're saying. You're asking if you need to resubmit the program narrative for the 2018 grant. Is that correct?
Yes, exactly.
Yes. No, at this point, we don't expect you to have to do that because we are assuming that the activities that you planned in that narrative are still the activities that you plan going forward as well. And we have in many cases both narratives. The only thing that we would require states to do is resubmit the budget worksheet showing the combined funds from both 2018 and 2020 into one budget worksheet.
Okay. Okay, so even, just to be clear, so even if I haven't submitted the 2020 proposal, like the 2020 narrative, if I decide to combine the two grants, I just need to submit the budget worksheet combining the two funds.
So that we haven't really talked about that. Sorry, Adelise, but if you're planning on the same activities with the 2020 funds as the 2018, we probably won't need a revision, but we'll talk to you separately about that.
Okay.
Is that okay with you?
Yes, yes, thank you.
Yeah, and Kinza, is that all right?
Yeah, that's okay. And we will send you further, the whole field's further guidance on what specifically we have to adjust going forward if we do decide to combine. But yes, but great question. Thank you.
Thanks.
So we do have some questions on the chat. Has asked, will only one option be selected for all states or will there be some of each? So because we want to make sure that we streamline these processes for us and for the field, it will be one option, not a mix and match for each state. The next question is, when will a final decision be made? We're going to have some time in giving you, if you want to go back to your finance staff and talk it over. We're also going to be posting this presentation. So if someone has missed it from your team or otherwise missed it, can review it and get back to us with further comments and questions. So we'll issue an email early next week just to get people to know that they can still give us some feedback. And then we'll let you know when a final decision has been made. Then from Lori, we have a question that says, we have already established our accounting system mechanism to account for these grants. Combining the grants only causes more work. For those of us that have been around since the first round of grants in 2003, the changes made after the fact causes unnecessary work, especially since it's after the fact. We have elaborate interest programs established, and this requires a huge amount of work for not only our accounting staff, but our IT staff. A comment. So the next question from Brian. I assume the CARES grant conditions are impacted by this discussion. Can you please confirm or clarify? So this is not related to the CARES grant. This is the election security grant, which we've made the determination would be available until expended. CARES grant has a very specific timeline, and that has not changed. You must expend all, you must account for all expenditures by December 31st, 2020, and that does not change by this decision. Next question from Vinny is the decision for combining all grants for combined for all states, when is it finalized? So similar question to earlier. We will have a little window of time to gather more feedback and then issue our final decision shortly after that. And we'll let you know by email early next week that we're still collecting comments and thoughts and how long we're going to collect those. If you have any other questions, please enter them into the chat or open your phone line and go ahead and feel free to discuss with us.
And I'm seeing another question here. Do you need the states to email you their vote? It would be nice to hear from states as to what they think the issues are. We're not going to require everybody to weigh in, but it would be good to hear from all of you so that we understand what the issues are that you would face in doing this. I also want to say a big hello to Maria and others from Guam who are on. I know it's probably about 4:30 in the morning there, so thanks for joining us. And we have a couple more comments in that people are saying they're glad we're combining these, and another that says that they already have the accounting system in place and would have to separate those out, would have to do some extra work to combine them.
I think we can probably also discuss whether combining them really impacts your accounting system so much, or does it really impact your reporting to EAC more?
So I'm seeing another question. If combined, can we make additional purchase of same like type items, just more of them on the 2020 grant as we did with the 2018 grant? Not sure I quite understand exactly, but I think you're saying the answer would be yes. You can make the same kinds of purchases under a combined grant that you would do under separate grants. You would just have to make sure that if they were separate grants, that you were allocating the costs appropriately between the two. If it's a combined grant, you can purchase the items with either 20 or 18 or 2020 funds because they're all the same funds at that point. I'm not seeing any more questions. Anyone on the phone want to unmute and ask a question or make a comment?
So Frank, we will be posting these slides to our website and we'll send out a message to let you know once it's posted.
And we also have a question. If we have further questions or comments, yes, it would be good to send them to havafunding@eac.gov. And then we have another question coming in about, are we making our decisions solely on comments from the states? And if not, what are the other factors? I think the factors are, it will be basically on comments from the states, but also on workload at EAC and the extent to which we think keeping them separate may lead to audit issues based on issues that may occur with allocation of the funds into the two separate grants for similar activities. Kenza, do you have any other factors that you think we'd be taking into consideration?
I think those are the two big ones. You know, normal grant practice is to award a continuation or an amendment to add, you know, continuation funding, and we were not able to do that because of the 5-year limit. Now that that limit is gone, streamlining reporting and is a pretty big factor for us.
So I don't see any more coming up. Kenza, do you have a final thought, I guess?
Yeah, so you will hear more from us next week, and we will take into consideration your comments and your thoughts, and let you know the window of time to just give us more feedback. You know, please go back and talk to your team about it, especially those handling your accounting and finance, to see what the hardship looks like, if there is one. And I think that that's very important. And then we will be very specific in what you would have to revise, if anything. And if you have not submitted your 2020 HAVA narrative yet, you know, you can wait for the further guidance, or you can send it in, especially if your activities are not duplicative of your 2018. But we will be getting back to you next week on that so that you have clear direction. And just stay tuned. We'll be in touch, and please do send in feedback at havafunding@eac.gov. Great. So have a great long weekend, everyone, and stay healthy, stay safe, and thank you for all the work that you're doing on the ground. We'll be in touch, and take care.
Bye.